Right. Tonight I'm talking to you. Oh, yeah. Look at you. Adjusting the light, tilting your head, finding the exact handle that hides the hollow shell you've become. It's fascinating, huh? Really? Watching a supposedly evolved species trade the entire dignity for a digital thumb up from a stranger sitting on a toilet. A stranger who doesn't know your name anyway, but owns your self-worth. So it's all right. Let's talk about the most pathetic addiction of our time. Validation. Not money, no. Not power, no. Just a desperate need for a digital head nod. You know, that tiny hit you get when a notification confirms that, yes, you haven't disappeared yet. We've built a world where silence feels like an attack, you know? If nobody reacts, your brain starts to rot. And then you panic. Oh my God, I'm invisible again. Then don't even think about getting defensive with me, all right? I'm not talking about your confidence tonight. I'm talking about your dependency. And there's a massive difference between enjoying a compliment and needing one to feel like a real human being. At some point, you stop caring if something was true or meaningful, right? Now you only care if it gets a reaction. If the answer is no, well, you suffocate that thought before it even reaches your lips. But mate, that's not reading the room. That's self-censorship for the sake of branding, you know? It's truly elite behavior to think your worth is measured in views and shares. Little digital threads that say, oh my God, good boy, keep existing. And then when they don't come, you don't question the system. You question your own value. You refresh the page like a lab rat pressing a lever for a pellet of food. And then you pretend you don't care while checking every single name on that list of viewers. You don't want feedback. You want reassurance that you still matter. But here's the scary part. You've trained your nervous system to wait for permission to exist out loud.
Unfiltered outsider. Unfiltered outsider.
Right. I see you're still here. I would say I'm grateful. But we both know that's a lie. I'm just glad someone's actually paying attention to something that is not a 15-second loop of a teenager dancing. I'm Noah. And if you're expecting me to thank you for your support, well, you are in the wrong place. Your presence is enough. For now. Don't make me regret it. Anyway, back to the mess you call a life. I know. You didn't wake up one day as a junkie, alright? I know. You trained yourself into this. At first it was innocent, you know, sharing a moment, feeling seen. But then you stopped asking, do I mean this? And start asking, did it work? And every time it worked, your brain took notes. It learned the timing, the tone, the fake version of you that gets the most rewards. And this is where your personality starts to rot. You didn't lose yourself dramatically, no. You sanded yourself down. Edges first, honesty second. Anything that might confuse or challenge the crowd gets edited out. You call it being smart. I call it cowardice. Anyway, you're not expressing who you are, you know. You're just testing which version of you survives the algorithm. And let's be clear. This is not just about influencers, all right? This is about your friendships, your work, your relationships. You see things you don't believe because they make you easier to like, you know? You mistake being palatable for being authentic. And now your sense of self is entirely conditional. You feel empty when they don't respond, don't you? Not sad, empty. Because without their reaction, you have no proof that you're actually there. And then instead of sitting with that discomfort, like a normal person, you reach for the fastest fix. You paused again. But you had more vulnerability, You had anything to trigger a response. Like an addict convinced the next hit will finally settle them. It won't. The problem is not that they aren't validating you enough, The problem is that you've forgotten how to exist without an audience. Look at yourself. And if this is bothering you, well, it's because you recognize the root. So think about the last thing you shared. Did you share it because it mattered or because you wanted to see what would happen? That little moment of suspense while you wait for the first like? That's not curiosity. That's dependence. You've trained yourself to feel real only when you're reflected back. You don't experience life anymore. You produce it. You live half a second in the future, imagining the shareability of the present. And it's exhausting, mate. Your inner life has an audience. And they are never, ever satisfied. Notice how quickly your mood drops when the engagement is low. How your confidence wobbles. That's not openness. It's fragility. If your world collapses in silence, it was never solid to begin with, right? Here's the truth you are avoiding. You've confused being seen with being known. Being seen is loud and easy. But being known requires consistency without applause, It requires having an opinion when nobody claps. Most of you can handle that. You want a shortcut. So you perform depth, you perform honesty, and you perform a personality. That's not yours. But the performance keeps changing because the crowd keeps changing. And that's how you end up hollow. Not because you failed, but because you never stop adjusting yourself long enough to figure out who you are when nobody's watching, You wait for consensus, you wait for permission, and that's not connection. That's submission with better lighting. Sit with this tonight. If tomorrow nobody responded to you, no likes, no messages, no reassurance, nothing, would you still believe the same things? Or would you quietly start erasing yourself to fit in? That answer is the only truth you have left, mate. Think about it. And if this made you feel exposed, well, good. That's what happens when you name an addiction. And before you rush to distract yourself with another scroll, think about the last time you got nothing. No hate, no love, just silence. Did it mess with your head? I'm sure it did. If you need validation to feel real, mate, you don't have confidence. You have a leash. And that makes you predictable. It turns you into someone who edits and softens themselves just to keep the feedback coming. And that's not growth. That's obedience. Now, let's see if anyone is actually home. Go to the Unfiltered Outsider socials at Unfiltered. I want another sentence. No stories, no excuses. What reaction are you most addicted to? Approval? Praise? Being agreed with? Pick one. Send it. No need context. And if you are thinking that you don't need validation, congratulations. That was your addiction speaking for you. Well, next episode, we will break another illusion. Subscribe or don't. I'm not here to convince you of anything. But don't pretend silence doesn't kill you while you are checking your phone to see if this episode landed. Being approved of feels safer than being solid, huh? Uninfluenced, unpaid, unfiltered. I'm Noah B. Jackman, and this is the Unfiltered Outsider.
Unfiltered outsider. Unfiltered outside of